After what feels like literally months of waiting, Google I/O 2019 finally gave us a decent look at Android's new navigation system for Android 10Q. After what I would consider nothing short of a disaster last year with Android Pie's navigation system, it's nice to see Google taking a step back and considering what everyone else in the smartphone market is really doing as far as UI control is concerned. Last year, Google unveiled Android 9's new half-gesture, half-touch button navigation UI, which, let's be honest, has never really felt finished. The combination of tapping and swiping is really very seldom a good combination when it comes to fluid interface design. Whilst Google were fiddling around with various Dr. Mario-inspired pill interfaces last year for Android 9 Pie, Apple were brandishing a frankly fantastic new gesture navigation system for the iPhone X and devices to follow that, which, let's be honest, does a really fantastic job at blending the line between what you're controlling in the user interface and where various UI elements are actually coming from. If you've ever used a newer iPhone, you'll really understand just how fluid it feels and how in charge of the device it makes you feel. This year, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that Google have done some pretty intense, I think we'll have to call it borrowing from iOS and the way that it handles navigation, because a lot of the gestures are almost exactly lifted from iOS, or the way that it handles its navigation at any rate. So what I want to do in this video is to sit down and give you a little bit of a look at how this UI works and how much better it is than last year's UI. It's worth noting that we're still in developer preview stage for Android Q, so this isn't an update that's available to everyone. You do have to go out and manually install it on your device should you want to. So you're going to have to take everything that you see with a bit of a pinch of salt. I've got it installed on my second device, which is an original Google Pixel. The actual operating system seems to run just fine, but there are still some bugs, so by all means, as I say, take it with a pinch of salt. Last year's navigation interface looked like this. It was a two-button system where you had a back button on one side and in the centre you had a pill. Now, the pill was used for a number of functions. You would use it to go home by tapping on it. You could hold it down in order to summon the Google Assistant, or you could drag along it in order to view the applications that are open in the background, and you can cycle between them. The other thing you can do with it is you can drag up in order to access your quick task switching application view, or you can do a full drag up right the way into the centre of the screen, and that opens your app drawer from any application, which is actually quite useful. The back button, as always, is a bit of a stuck in the mud feature of Android. Android apps aren't designed to not use a back button, so for legacy reasons, that back button is here to stay for the time being. Jumping into Android Q, we're greeted by a rather different looking interface. As you can see, there's a small white line at the bottom of the display, somewhat reminiscent of the iPhone X and XS and their navigation UIs. Now, this white line is used basically just to start your motion from. So if you start your swipe going upwards from this little pill or line at the bottom, you drag upwards, that will take you back to your home screen. If you do a swipe from left to right, that means it takes you into your previous application. You can do that a number of times in an almost sort of bridge-like fashion. It's like you're drawing an N on the display. There's a little bit of an upward motion there, and that's actually a really nice way of switching applications. It feels right. It very much feels like you're turning a page. The main difference here, however, is the back button, which is completely gone. So the way that you access the back button now in Android 10Q is you drag in from either side of the display. And finally, the way that you access your multitasking UI this year is by swiping up and holding for a moment, and that allows you to scroll through all the applications that are currently open, which again is quite a nice way of doing it. It does take a touch too long for my liking. The little pause that you have to do at the top could be a good bit shorter as far as I'm concerned, because at the moment I just end up going back to my home screen most of the time by accident. But I think that's all coming in future updates. I think things are going to change in a fairly big way. Personally, I'm still hoping that they get rid of the black bar at the bottom of the screen completely, because it's always there. It's either black or white depending on which application you're in, and I really want to just have the white line, so the sort of iPhone X style navigation bar at the bottom. Get rid of any blacking out of the UI. I just don't need it. And I think that's where we'll call it quits for today's video. As you can see, it really was just a quick look at Android UI and what it's going to be like for Android 10Q this year. I like where it's going. I think it's headed in the right direction. To be perfectly honest, I would be fairly happy with a complete drag and drop from what iOS has at the moment. I'm a fairly die-hard Android user, I'll be honest, but I'm not afraid to admit that what Apple have at the moment is frankly the perfect navigation system as far as I'm concerned. So I think, yeah, all that remains really is for me to say if there are any other major developments as far as Android 10Q is concerned, it will no doubt be on this channel at some point. I will make a video about it. I'll probably also make a video when we actually see the full release, but that's obviously a few months down the line. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.